There was a young pizza delivery boy who worked tirelessly, always on time, and with a genuine smile. He wasn't like the others in his line of work. He didn't complain about the hours, the low pay, or the long nights. For him, delivering pizzas wasn't just a job. It was a way of life. He didn't dream of becoming rich or famous. He simply wanted to make enough to get by and help people along the way. On one of his deliveries, he found himself at the doorstep of a grand mansion, the kind of place most people only saw in movies. The woman who lived there was in her early 30s, successful and powerful. She was a businesswoman who had worked hard to get to the top, but despite her wealth, there was something missing in her life. She didn't have real friends. People around her were often after something, whether it was money, status, or favors. She had grown tired of it all, and deep down, she longed for something more genuine. When the pizza boy arrived, she noticed how calm and polite he was. There was no rush in his demeanor, no anxiety. He was simply doing his job with pride, like he had nothing to prove. Most delivery boys would have been eager for a generous tip, but this one didn't seem to care about money. As he handed her the pizza, their eyes met briefly, and for a moment, she was struck by something she couldn't explain. It was as if he wasn't just another worker. She watched him as he left, intrigued by his simplicity, his lack of desire for anything beyond the task at hand. After that night, she found herself thinking about him more often. She had a large security system in place, and out of curiosity, she began to watch him on the CCTV cameras. She was careful, never wanting to let him know she was watching. She'd seen hundreds of workers in her life, but none like him. He wasn't just delivering pizza. He was living a life without the constant need for approval or recognition. He didn't chase after wealth or fame. It was as if he had already found the one thing that eluded so many others: contentment. She wondered what it would be like to live with such ease, to not be constantly battling for more. It wasn't long before she realized that she was fascinated by him. And then, one day, she decided to offer him something that no one had ever turned down before: a tip of $5 million. It was an amount so large it could change anyone's life in an instant. She believed that such a gesture would impress him, that it would show him how much she appreciated his work. She had no expectations, only a curiosity about how he would react. But when the boy arrived at her doorstep to deliver the pizza that evening, he surprised her. He smiled, took the money she offered, and politely rejected it. He didn't seem interested in the millions she offered. Instead, he said something that stuck with her: "Thank you, but I don't need this. My work is enough for me." She was stunned. No one had ever refused her generosity before, especially not someone in his position. For the first time, she realized that all her wealth, all her power, meant little to someone who had something far more valuable: integrity and a sense of purpose. That was when she began to truly see him. Not just the delivery boy, but the person behind the role. It was at that moment she decided to know more about him, to understand how someone could be so free from the chase for money and status. The woman couldn't shake off the feeling that something profound had just happened. The boy's rejection of the $5 million was not something she could easily dismiss. She kept thinking about it, turning the scene over in her mind again and again. What kind of person was he? How could anyone turn down such an incredible offer, especially when life for him seemed so difficult? She had worked hard to get where she was, building her business empire from the ground up, making sacrifices along the way. She had seen the hunger in the eyes of so many people, the desire for wealth and recognition. Everyone wanted something, but here was someone who needed nothing, who had found fulfillment in the simplest things. She realized that in all her years of striving for more, she had lost sight of what truly mattered: human connection. She had surrounded herself with people who were eager to be in her life only because of her wealth, who never saw her as anything more than a business opportunity. The boy, on the other hand, was different. He didn't care about her money. He didn't even care about impressing her. In his eyes, she wasn't just another wealthy woman offering handouts. He saw her as a person just like him. Over the following days, she found herself thinking about him more often. She watched him from her cameras again, but this time, it wasn't with the same sense of curiosity. She was trying to understand him, trying to see what it was that made him so content. She noticed how he interacted with the world around him. He wasn't just delivering pizzas. He was helping people, chatting with the elderly customers, giving a kind word to those who seemed lonely. He didn't rush through his job, didn't treat people as if they were simply part of a transaction. He seemed to find joy in small acts of kindness. She began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: envy. She envied the way he could move through the world so freely, so unburdened. There were no guards around him, no walls protecting him from the world. She, on the other hand, felt trapped in her own success, unable to trust anyone around her. She had everything she thought she wanted, but she had no one to share it with, no one to truly connect with. She started to question her own choices. Was it worth it? Was all the money and power worth the emptiness she felt inside? She had everything on paper, but she felt alone. This feeling grew stronger with each passing day. She tried to distract herself with work, but the thought of the boy lingered. Finally, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She needed to find out more about him, to understand what made him tick. She couldn't let him slip away without getting to know him better. So, she set out to do something she had never done before. She reached out to him, but not in the way she had planned. She didn't want to appear like the rich woman offering charity. Instead, she wanted to see him as a person, to talk to him without the barrier of wealth between them. She decided to invite him for coffee, a simple gesture that seemed almost impossible to her in that moment. But she wasn't sure if he would even accept the invitation, or if he would see her as just another wealthy woman trying to get his attention. Nonetheless, she knew that she had to try. This wasn't about money or status anymore. This was about finding something real, something that she had been searching for, without even knowing it, all these years. The woman's invitation wasn't as easy as she had imagined. She spent days thinking of the right words to say, unsure of how to approach him without it seeming like she was doing it out of pity, or for some kind of ulterior motive. Her usual confidence, the same confidence that had built her empire, seemed to falter in this new, unfamiliar territory. She had always been in control of her relationships, manipulating situations to suit her needs. But with him, it was different. She couldn't predict his response, couldn't read his mind. There was no power to wield here, just a chance for two people to meet, to connect on some human level. The thought of it made her nervous. Finally, she decided to act. One afternoon, she asked her assistant to arrange a casual meeting at a cafe, nothing extravagant, just coffee, a neutral place. She didn't want him to feel uncomfortable, like he was being dragged into her world. She wanted him to feel at ease, to see her as someone who was just a regular person. So she chose a quiet, unassuming cafe on the outskirts of town, far from her mansion and her usual circles. It felt like a risk, but she was willing to take it. When the boy arrived, she noticed the way he carried himself. There was no nervousness in his posture, no awkwardness in his smile. He wasn't trying to impress her, nor was he uncomfortable in her presence. He simply walked in like he had walked into many cafes before, like he belonged. She was struck by this. Most people who met her for the first time were always in awe, always trying to make a good impression. But not him. He just sat down across from her, calm and collected, as though he was meeting an old friend. It was refreshing. It made her realize how much she had missed out on. How much she had been pretending to be someone she wasn't in order to fit into a world that never really understood her. She tried to start the conversation casually, asking him about his day, his work, the usual small talk. But as they spoke, she found herself revealing more about herself than she intended. She spoke about her business, her loneliness, her struggles with trust. It felt strange to open up to someone like him, someone who had so little in comparison to her. But his easygoing nature made it feel natural. He listened attentively, never interrupting, just nodding and offering kind words of understanding. There was no judgment in his eyes, no need to make her feel inferior. For the first time in years, she felt truly heard. As the conversation went on, she couldn't help but admire him. He wasn't just a delivery boy. He had dreams, passions, a deep sense of purpose. He told her about his volunteer work at a local shelter, about the kids he mentored, about the simple pleasures of life that brought him joy. He didn't talk about money, success, or fame. He spoke about making a difference in small, meaningful ways. There was something so refreshing about his perspective. It was as though he had figured out the secret to life that so many people, including her, had missed. He didn't care about climbing a social ladder. He didn't need the approval of others. He lived his life on his own terms and he was content. The more she listened, the more she realized how far removed she was from that kind of happiness. She had spent her life chasing after things that didn't matter in the end. She had focused so much on her career and wealth, she had forgotten how to truly live. She began to wonder, could she change? Could she let go of the walls she had built around herself, the walls that had kept her isolated and lonely? By the time their coffee had finished, the woman knew that this meeting had changed something in her. She wasn't sure what it was, but there was a shift in the air, something subtle, but real. The boy had shown her a side of life she had long since ignored. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. As they said their goodbyes, she couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude towards him. It wasn't about the money, the tip, or anything material. It was about something deeper, something intangible that had made her see the world differently. For the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. She didn't need to have everything figured out, but meeting him had given her the courage to believe that change was possible. She knew that she wanted more from life now, more than just power and wealth. She wanted real connections, real happiness, and she realized that perhaps, just perhaps, the boy was the key to unlocking a future she had never imagined. The woman left the cafe that day with a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, a sense of calm. She had been running for so long, chasing after success, chasing after a life that she thought would bring her happiness. But in that quiet cafe, with the boy sitting across from her, she realized that all her chasing had been in vain. She had spent so much time building her empire, trying to control every aspect of her life, that she had lost sight of what truly mattered. The boy had opened her eyes to a simpler, more meaningful way of living. It wasn't about the money or the power. It wasn't about impressing others or filling her life with expensive things. It was about living with authenticity, with kindness, and with a sense of purpose that transcended all the material wealth she had accumulated. For the first time, she felt a genuine desire to change. She didn't know how or where to start, but she knew she couldn't go back to her old ways. The conversation with the boy had been a wake-up call, a reminder of the things she had lost sight of in her relentless pursuit of success. As the days went on, she couldn't stop thinking about him. She wanted to see him again, to talk to him more, to learn from him. It wasn't just about being around someone who was so different from her. It was about the way he made her feel, peaceful, grounded, and real. She realized that she had been hiding behind the walls of her wealth, afraid to be vulnerable, afraid to let anyone in. But with him, she didn't feel that fear. She felt safe, accepted, and understood. There was no judgment in his eyes, no expectation. He simply saw her as a person, not as a symbol of power or status, and that, she realized, was the greatest gift of all. One afternoon she made a decision. She called him again, this time to invite him to a different kind of meeting. It wasn't going to be just another casual coffee. This time, she wanted to ask him something important. She wanted to understand what had made him so content, so free from the pressures of the world. She wanted to know how he had found peace in a world that was constantly pushing people to want more, to be more. She needed to know how he had built a life that was full of meaning, not just success. As she sat in her office, waiting for his arrival, she realized how far she had come in just a few weeks. Her life had shifted from a place of emptiness to one of possibility. She had once believed that success was the key to everything, that wealth and power were the ultimate goals. But now, sitting there, waiting for him, she understood that the real key to happiness wasn't about money at all. It was about living with purpose, with integrity, and with an open heart. She wasn't sure where this new path would lead her, but for the first time in a long time, she was excited to find out. When he arrived, she greeted him with a smile, one that was different from the smiles she had given so many others. It was genuine, full of warmth, and filled with the kind of gratitude she hadn't felt in years. She asked him to sit down, and without wasting time, she got to the heart of it. "I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation," she said, "and I want to know something. How did you get to where you are? How did you build such a life of peace, of purpose, without chasing after things that don't matter? I need to learn from you." The boy smiled a soft, knowing smile, and he began to speak in his calm, measured way. "It's not about what you have," he said. "It's about what you give. It's about finding fulfillment in the simple things, the people you help, the kindness you show, the way you live each day with intention." His words struck her like a bolt of lightning. It was all so simple yet so profound. For the first time, she felt as though she was hearing the truth, the real truth, about life. She listened intently, soaking in every word, and as he spoke, she felt a shift inside her, a shift that made her realize she wasn't alone in her journey. This boy, this humble delivery boy, had given her the key to a new life, a life that was more meaningful, more authentic, and more full of love. As the boy spoke, the woman found herself in awe of his words, his simplicity, his deep understanding of life, and his perspective on happiness were everything she had been searching for, though she hadn't known it until now. She listened closely, each sentence sinking deeper into her mind, unraveling the layers of confusion and emptiness that had built up inside her for so long. He spoke of the importance of gratitude, of living with intention, of making each day count in small, meaningful ways. It wasn't about grand gestures or chasing after accolades. It was about finding fulfillment in the quiet moments, helping others, showing kindness, and living a life that was true to oneself. And as he shared his own experiences, she realized that his life, though humble, was richer than anything she had ever known. He had everything he needed, not in terms of material wealth, but in the way he connected with the world around him. She knew, then, that she had been searching for the wrong things all along. As the conversation came to an end, the woman felt a sense of peace that she had never experienced before. The walls that she had built up around herself, walls of success, of power, of wealth, had begun to crumble. She no longer needed them to define her. She didn't need the validation of others or the approval that came with her title and her riches. For the first time, she felt free. Free to be herself, free to live her life without the constant pressure to prove her worth to anyone. And in that moment, she realized that the boy had taught her something far more valuable than any business deal or investment ever could. He had shown her how to live with purpose, to give without expecting anything in return, and to find joy in the simplicity of life. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened. What had started as an encounter between a wealthy woman and a pizza delivery boy had blossomed into something neither of them had expected. A real connection. They spent more time together, talking about everything from their childhoods to their dreams for the future. Slowly, the woman began to change. She stopped looking at life through the lens of power and wealth, and started to embrace the things that truly mattered. Love, kindness, and human connection. The boy, too, had found something in her that he hadn't realized he was searching for. Despite the differences in their worlds, they had both been seeking something beyond material possessions. And in each other, they found it. It wasn't long before they both realized that they had grown to care for one another deeply. The woman, once so consumed by her empire, now saw the boy not just as a delivery boy, but as someone who had opened her eyes to a life she had never imagined. A life of simplicity, purpose, and real love. The boy, in turn, found in her a woman who had rediscovered her true self, who was no longer defined by her wealth but by her heart. And so, as their bond grew stronger, they decided to take the next step. In a small ceremony, with only a few close friends and family members, they got married. It wasn't a grand affair. It didn't need to be. They were two people who had found something that most people spent their whole lives searching for. A love that was pure and untainted by money or status. And together, they knew they would build a life that was richer than anything money could buy. A life filled with love, generosity, and the kind of peace that only comes from living authentically.